Denim Couch Podcast. Ooh, whoa, ooh, whoa.
The 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s with Steph with an F.
Hi guys, welcome to the Denim Couch Podcast, where we chill on this denim couch and talk about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm Stephanie Tanner. Welcome. Hey guys, it's Stephanie Tanner with the Denim Couch Podcast. This week's episode, I interviewed Helen Patton, and I've known Helen for a while now. She hasn't aged a day since I met her, which was probably 20-some years ago. And we started out our interview by just chatting about life, and then she pulled out a huge bin of memorabilia from the 40s and 50s. She has a ton of newspaper clippings from all the major events that happened in the war, in World War II. And she has magazines of important events, when Princess Diana died. She has when the presidents were shot. She has everything. So in this bin, she has a bunch of Japanese money that was actually the money that the Japanese had planned to use in the U.S. And it says the Japanese government, I think it says 5 pesos, and it's like a mix. It looks like the dollar, but it's definitely mixed in with Japanese influence. So she has $50 bill, $5 bills, a bunch of different money that would have been used if the Japanese had won at that point and taken over. So crazy. She also has quite a few war ration books, which have stamps left, and that's pretty crazy. And then my personal favorite in this bin, she has a long string of confetti from VJ Day, August 14th, 1945, which ended World War II. So she has this blue confetti. It's crazy. These rations. She also has a V-mail, not an email. Don't mistake that for email. She has a V-mail, which is where they would photocopy the letters you wrote and print them really tiny. And then you would send your mail via V-mail. You'd have to read this tiny, tiny letter that they had photocopied to conserve paper. I felt really close to that experience by seeing these newspaper clippings. I'm so grateful for the time I live in right now and the blessings that I have, and that we don't really have to experience war like they did firsthand with, just expecting the men in your family to go out and serve. It was expected. We're lucky enough that you get to choose now if you would like to serve your country. We're so thankful for those that we know that are doing that right now. Thank you guys. Let's dive in. This podcast is about stories from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. But not only that, it's about happiness and joy and people's experiences with happiness and joy, their opinions, their thoughts on happiness and joy in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Helen Patton. I'm currently living in Burns, Oregon. I've been here, oh my goodness, since 1953, I think. My husband was hired to come here to set up the first medical laboratory that they actually had here, and they had just built a new hospital. I became a school teacher and then the principal later. When I came here, I thought I had come to the end of the world. I mean, I was right off the Oregon State campus, and I just thought, oh, goodness.
How common was your name back in the 40s and 50s?
Very common, I think. In fact, in my social group right now, there are 3 or 4 Helens. Yeah, and so it was just a common name. I don't know, it's a kind of a strange name. My middle name is Billy. my father desperately wanted a boy, and the other names, of course, were Irene and some of those. And those, many of the names came back, Emily and Emma, but Helen didn't.
Maybe it'll make its way back here.
I hope not. It's okay. We can do without it.
Can you tell me what life was like back in the 40s and 50s?
It was a very free time. We rode our bicycles everywhere, spent all day, all afternoon in the swimming pool in the summers. It was just much freer. And I don't think our parents worried about us much. We played night games, and the signal to come home was when the street lights came on, or it got dark. And it was just so much freer. And I think it was really good because we had to make our own decisions. Today, everything is so programmed that the kids just kind of stop and wait for the referee to make the call or the umpire to call, and we didn't have that. So, we argued if it was, and somebody get mad and go home, and then 15, 20 minutes later, they'd be back. And but you had to make those decisions. And I know when I was principal at the school, one of the things that the retail community talked about that the schools weren't doing very well was teaching kids to make decisions. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, that's because they don't make decisions. They just kind of stand and wait for the call. We did not do that. Had to figure it out on your own. And I think that was a good time. And it was just, we didn't know we were learning. It was just natural. It's the way it was. And I remember my grandmother lived in North Dakota, and every summer we went back to North Dakota. So I spent a lot of time there. My grandfather had a beautiful big garden, and people were very poor. This is like in the 1930s, prior to the war. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother always kept a big pot of stew on her stove, and the hobos would stop and ask for food because the train ran through not too far from our place. And she always gave them something to eat, but she always had them do a little bit of work because she thought that was good for them to feel like they were earning it. And this is something that I love. The hobos had their own language. They had their own alphabet. I have a rock on my front porch, and it is a simplistic picture of a cat. And it was a hobo symbol for kind-hearted woman. And so they would scratch these symbols on a fence post or something, so other hobos coming through or the other men riding the rails would know if there was a house that would be kind to them, or if they would know, stay away from this one, he'll bring the shotgun out, So I always thought that was really interesting. And my grandmother obviously had the good symbol because she got lots and lots of people that stopped there. But that was fine. They were okay. And my grandfather had a really good job, and it was a nice house. And my grandmother thought that was her duty to do that.
Can you tell me about your experience with World War II?
The email was my uncle.
Okay.
And I went everywhere with him. He was my favorite uncle. They had no children at the time. And he and his wife lived in a little house close to us. So anyway, I was very distressed that he was in the army and over there fighting. So he was really good to send me letters and the email. And he was in Patton's Third Army that made that big push all the way across Germany.
Wow.
And I knew that. And so I would come home from school every day, and I would look at the front page of the paper. And that was how I could kind of keep track of where he was by watching the headlines on the newspaper, and to kind of watch the war turning and the Allies winning. And the resistance crumbling. Being in the Depression era was an interesting time too, because some people really just didn't have food. I mean, they just really didn't. And I know my grandmother would fix up a box of things, and she had me take it down in my wagon down to some people that lived down at the end of the road. And she said, "Oh, just take this down and give it to them." She said, "Just tell them I sent them some extra stuff." And so that was kind of in my upbringing as well, and part of that era where it was a kinder time. People really took care of one another. And I think there's still some of that in small towns. I see that in Burns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I have a favorite Burns story that kind of relates back to that. I was going to clean out too much stuff, so I got rid of a bunch of stuff, took it down to the thrift store, and about a week later I went to make a pie. And I had cleaned out all my Pyrex pie pans. I thought, well, darn, I don't have any pie pans. So I thought, okay, well, tomorrow, it'll be Saturday, I'm going to go to some garage sales. I'll get me one. And I went around to several garage sales and said, I'm looking for a Pyrex pie pan. Oh, sorry, we don't have one, you know. Well, I kind of got tired of that and went to lunch. And when I came back, there were 3 Pyrex pie pans on my front porch. And that's my favorite story of a little town. And that harkens back, in my mind, back to the Depression times and when people really did look out for one another. But it was an easier time back then, and it was a harder time. Yeah, many people had it very, very hard. And then the war came, and that brought prosperity because there were many, many jobs. It also brought the big change, as you probably know, of women going to work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was, I lived right there in the shadow of that huge shipyard on the Columbia River, right there, and a lot of the women went to work. And that was reflected in, you couldn't get school teachers because you can make a lot more money in the shipyards. And you know, so yeah, it changed the culture. I guess that's what I want to say.
What would you say you did for fun?
Well, movies were big, and they used to have the Saturday movies, and you had what would you call them? Serials, I guess, because it would be Roy Rogers or Gene Autry, and every week would be a new episode. It would be like watching a season on TV, and so that was it. And you had a lot of movies that you really followed, you know, and you couldn't be a Roy Rogers fan and a Gene Autry fan. No, it was like Elvis and Pat Boone. You either were one or the other. So, and then there's the Lone Ranger in there too. But as I got older, living on the river, we had a big Sea Scout organization there. Scouting was big as it continued, but we had the Sea Scout, and they had a sailboat, and they learned to sail. And we had a retired dentist who lived in St. Helens, and he couldn't sail anymore, but he had a beautiful boat. So every weekend he would go down and sit in his boat, and we'd all go down and crew for him. And he knew that if he went down and got it ready and all, that a crew would show up. So we spent a lot of time on the river, and Sovie's Island was there, and Sand Island. We go over and spend a lot of picnic and times there. Then when I got older and in college, Sovie's Island was connected to the main road into Portland by a ferry. There was not a bridge. And there was an old guy that ran the ferry. Oh, he would just get so angry with us. We'd go over, we'd take our picnic and our bathing, you know, and we're going to spend the day on the island. Now, you kids get back here by 9 o'clock. I'm going to bed. and I'm not getting up. This time I'm not taking you back across. So you kids get back here. Well, of course, we never got back. We'd be knocking on his door. I told you kids. So we'd all scrounge up a little money and, say, oh, come on, we got $20. So that was fun. It wasn't as mechanized a time, We played the night games in the streets out every night, in the summertime.
Do you remember what the night games consisted of?
Oh yeah, kick the can and throw a ball over the house or something. And then Red Rover. Red Rover was a big one. And we just played all those. And then we had a hide and go seek type game. Yeah, so almost every night we did that. And riding bikes, that was big. We didn't think of having television or phones or any of that, but we did have radio. And in the evenings, everybody would sit around the radio and you would listen to Inner Sanctum and stories like that they had really great sound effects. So the door would creak and everything. But we did a lot of community dinners is what we kind of call them. Not really community, but groups of friends. Everybody would bring something, and we did a lot of that and played a lot of cards. And the kids always had like a kids table, and the adults, and we played games and cards.
What did you wear back in the 40s and 50s?
Dirty saddle shoes with bobby socks, and everybody wore those. Of course, the Portland girls were the ones that always set the style, but we were only 20 miles away, so we did that too. Then after World War II, the styles changed dramatically. They had been short during World War II. And partly, I've heard this, I don't know if this is true or not, but that was partly to conserve material, and in wartime, they shortened things. Well, after World War II, in maybe 1948, you might know this, Christian Dior had the new look, and the styles went way down, long ballerina skirts, and just barely off the floor. So that was a drastic change, But then the style, as you know, the Jansen sweater was really the thing to have. And I worked in high school as an usherette in a theater. And that was very different than it is now, because you had uniformed usherettes and they stood at the door, and if you came in, they took you down to your seat with a flashlight and they seated you, and then the usherette came back up and stood by the door. So that was my job. My mother didn't want me to work, but I wanted to because all my friends were. You know how that goes. Mm-hmm. So every week I got paid. We went to the Chinese restaurant, and I got fried rice. It was 90 cents. And my friend, she got noodles, and they were 40 cents. Then I went down to the store on Saturday morning and bought me a new Jansen sweater. And I did that every payday for a long time. And I had a Jansen sweater in about every color, I think. Yeah. So that was, and then of course we did have the Pendleton too. I never was really into the Pendleton, but my sister was. They had those pleated skirts, hundreds of pleats in those darn things. And then they were long and they were reversible. So you had to pleat them and iron them just right. And my sister, sorry, she was a slob, and she would just leave all of her stuff on the floor. Then she would hire me to press her Pendleton skirts. And that was a job. You had to lay them out on the ironing board and put pins in them because they were long. Oh. And you had to pin those pleats. During the war, there were no nylons. And the girls would put brown stuff. I mean, make it look like nylons. Cover their legs with that so that they looked like they had nylons on. And then they put a seam up the back. making that seam was really hard. I remember my sister trying to get that seam to go up and be straight. It was really a task.
What brought you happiness?
Being independent, I think, brought me happiness. And I think particularly for a woman or a girl, I think you need to be able to take care of yourself. And I quit college after my sophomore year and got married. And I had everything. I mean, my husband had a really good job. We had a nice house. I had 2 kids. Everything was going along fine. And then one morning, he could not get out of bed. And his ankle was as big as his thigh, both of his ankles. Well, long story short, he was diagnosed with 3 very bad diseases, and all of them were fatal. And I just thought, oh my word, I'm sitting here, I can't even make this house payment. I don't have enough anything. So I thought, okay, if I get out of this one, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to be able to support myself and take care of my children. And I think that brought me more satisfaction and happiness maybe around just when I graduated from college and I got my first teaching job. And I just thought that was just insurance. It was just security. And even if I had never worked, I still would have been okay. I would have felt I can take care of myself. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was really important. And that made me really, really happy, I think. Of course, you have all the standard things, you know, happiness is your children and all of those things. But I think the most long-term feeling that I got of, I don't know if it was happiness, but yeah, being contented, of being okay. It was really hard because I had the 2 kids, and fortunately my folks let me come back and move in with them near Portland, and I could go to Portland State.
Do you have a love story, and can you tell me about it?
Well, this I certainly don't recommend.
Okay.
At all. But I met my husband and married him 30 days later. And we actually flipped a coin to see. He was driving me home we had been on a summer job, and he was driving me home, and we got to the crossroads. He's supposed to take me back to Portland. And he says, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to turn right and go back to Portland, or do you want to turn left and go to Nevada and get married? And I just thought a minute, and I said, I really don't know. So we sat there for a minute. He said, well, let's flip a coin. So he always says he lost, and I always said he won. But you know, I knew what I wanted in a man. I had been dating for some time and everything, and I knew that, number one, he was smart, and I wanted to have smart kids. I really was attracted to that, to the brain, and I just knew it was okay. But my mother, of course, was horrified, and my family, my whole family was, but it turned out well. And I mean, even though I hadn't known him long, I had seen him under stress. I had seen him under, hard working conditions. And I had seen him early in the morning and late at night. And I just thought, well, this is good. And then I thought, well, he'll go back to college one way and I'll go the other way.
Can you tell me about a favorite memory of yours?
I go there. It's my go-to place when I want to just really relax or go to bed. It was in the summertime, and I was maybe a young teenager, or maybe not quite, maybe 12 or something. I was at my grandmother's, and she had this beautiful yard and garden, and there were blue flowers. And I was laying down under those blue flowers reading a book, and the sun was on me, and I was just toasty warm. And the flowers up above me had bees on them and were kind of buzzing. That is my favorite memory. I just love that. And I love the outdoors, and I think, and everything nature, and I love the birds and all. And I attribute that to my spending so much time at my grandparents' house. They had a big bay window, and my grandfather's leather chair sat in that big bay window. And outside that window was a fountain, a big pond and fountain thing. And it always in the summertime had moss roses all the way around it. And of course, it was very attractive to the birds. And so my grandfather got me a bird book, and I would sit in that leather chair and try to identify the birds. Well, I'm sure. And then he'd come home, and I would tell him that I had seen this bird. Well, that bird really doesn't live around here, but okay. But that was fun. But anyway, that's a favorite memory, and I don't know why, but it was just so nice, and it was so quiet, and it was just beautiful.
Can you tell me about your experience with sadness or hardship in your lifetime?
Oh, the death of my daughter with no, and her sickness. 2.5 years fighting that. It was a nightmare. Just a nightmare. Yeah. And I still have nightmares about that. Yeah. So anyway, And that you never do get over that. And I don't like the word closure, because everybody's saying nothing, you never get closure. It just becomes part of you, and you learn that that's the part of you that is there, and that's just it. It's just like anything else. It's just, it becomes part of you. And that's, yeah. So that was the worst thing, and it went on for a long time. And she died of breast cancer, and I really think that more needs to be done with the men who are the victims of breast cancer, because I watched her husband go through that as well, and it damaged him irreparably, I would say. Yeah, but you never hear that. I mean, of course, it's so awful and so traumatic for the girl who's going through it, but it's bad on both sides. And I think they talk about the veterans coming back with their shock syndrome and all. I think men who go through watching a wife die like that, I think they have that traumatic syndrome as well. You know? So that was hard. You know? But it brought me closer to my grandchildren, and that was the plus of that. So I got to spend more time with them than I ordinarily would have. So that was good. And they were delightful. Still are. And I think the extended family is really important. And I used to teach a college course and it was why some children succeed and other children don't. There's a lot of research been done on that, huge research. And they came up with about 43 things that successful children have that unsuccessful children don't have. And there's a book that I used to use as a textbook called Raising Successful Children. And one of them is the influence of not only the extended family, but of another person outside the family who is that child's advocate or something. That child has somebody in their life that is important to them and they can go to, or they know that person will be there. So I do think that is important too. And I think we lose the sight of that fact that it's really important for kids to have other people in their lives besides just their mom and dad.
Do you have any advice for people my age or the younger generation dealing with technology and the things we have to deal with today?
You hear a lot about do your own thing, and make sure that you find your passion and do your happiness and that's a lot of it. But I do think that you have to get a really good foundation and explore a lot of things before you make a decision what way you want to go. And I think that our colleges push kids too quickly to declare a major and do this, and you go in and they outline your whole program and you get started in that. I think we need to have more time to kind of explore, and I really believe in some travel. I think that is primarily very important. And another thing that goes kind of along with that is you hear all the time that if there's a negative person in your life, get rid of that negative person, get rid of that negative person. Well, I suppose that is good advice. However, my favorite philosopher is Winnie the Pooh, and they have Eeyore in their life. And I love this because it's a meme, it's all over. But sometimes Piglet and Pooh are sitting there and I haven't seen Eeyore lately. Maybe we better go see him. Maybe he's not feeling good. So they go and there's Eeyore, it's a bad day and everything. Well, how come you guys are coming to see me? Well, we just thought maybe you were feeling bad. Maybe you needed a little help here, And I think in discarding people that are negative, maybe we don't give enough help when we sometimes should. And I don't think you should stay in a bad relationship, or I'm not going there, but I think that's something that's human kindness, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's kind of been lost. And I think that young people today would feel better if they give a little more and they help people along the way. I think you would feel really good about that, because there's a quote somebody said, altruism is the ultimate form of selfishness, because you get more of a reward than that person that you're helping. So I think if I had advice to young people is don't settle too soon for a career choice. If you have to take a little time to look around, do that, travel where you can, help somebody along the way, and then be your own person. And I think you'll find that works. Well, as I tell my kids and my grandkids, you can't argue with me because I have the wisdom of the ages. I'm so darn old now, Steph, that if I haven't learned it by now, it's too late.
Do you think technology is a good or bad thing?
If we use it well, it's powerful. But it's just as powerful, and it can be so hurtful, and I don't know. But you're not going to stop it, so probably it's best to learn how to deal with it and use it well, and to make it the powerful thing that it could be. I'm really distressed with the quality of stuff I see on TV and everything. It can be so good, but so much of it, and the way it portrays, I think particularly American males, I think they're portrayed very poorly. And they're made to look like stumblebums and butts of jokes, and I don't know. I just think we could do a better job than that. I was just I saw a relationship that probably brings it to mind. The girl, beautiful young people, both of them, very talented, very doing good things. The girl had no real qualms about asking the man to do a couple of things for her. He asked her to do one thing, and not very much. And she just, the attitude, your leg's broken? I mean, instead of, well, yeah, sure, I can do that. To be a partner, you don't have to put the other person down. And it just, yeah,
You serve each other.
yeah, you help along the way. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's tough. It's really tough out there now, I think. I think it's hard for young people to get going, get started. And if they don't have support, it's really hard. And they can support one another in their own, with their own talents and ways. And I just think that's very important.
It's so great to be aware of everyone around us and to be a part of everyone's lives and to really put effort into the people that may not, may need it, I mean, we all need it, but everyone deserves to be treated well and to be cared for and to be looked after. So there's those people in our lives who need that extra special attention, and why not give it to them? Eeyore needed attention. Eeyore needed a friend, and his friends were always there for him. There's so much we can take from other people's experiences because we all have different experiences and we all can learn from each other, and it's important for us to strengthen our relationships with each other. Thank you for listening. It's Steph with an F. See you next time. Wait. You can't miss the embarrassing story of the week. No. Okay. It's that time. It's Steph with an F's embarrassing story of the week. Okay, so this week's embarrassing story. So here's the story. My sister is getting married next month, and we're all super excited about it. Her fiance is amazing, and he fits very well into this family. So we're really excited for them to get married. And my mother and I have been definitely helping with the wedding projects, I guess you could say. And so I took the photos, which I love doing that. Oh, so fun. I took the photos, and my mom bought the template. And so we're putting together her announcement card. And so we looked this thing over. First off, we, edited the template, put the photo on, and we looked at it at least 8 or 9 times. I looked over it 4 times. She looked over it 4 times. We even ordered a proof copy of this announcement so that we could make sure it looked good in person. And so let's just say we got the proof copy and everything looked good. Right before she's trying to mail them out, all the envelopes have the addresses on them. Everything's ready. And she looks down and notices that the date is November 14th or whatever day they're getting married. And so that morning I get a frantic call from her, and it's embarrassing because I was the one who edited the template and I totally messed that up. So in 2 places it said November, like Novermber, and that's going to be embarrassing if I spelled that wrong too. But anyways, so we fixed it. We ordered more. So 500 cards are just sitting at my parents' house saying November 14th. And we should have just sent them out. It would have been really hilarious. And Haley would have been made fun of for a long time. So you're welcome, Haley. We saved you from a lot of pain. No, so my mother's awesome. This was totally my fault. I was the one who edited it and approved it and looked at it 6 or 7 times, and yet still November looked good to me. Alrighty. Well, next week I have a special treat for you guys. I was able to connect with a lady lady named Daria on social media, and she has posted certain stories on a popular Instagram page of old photos. This Instagram account goes over old photos and just the stories behind them. And her story made me cry. It's about her parents in the 50s and 60s. So look forward to that. And yeah, so in this next episode, you'll be able to hear her interview about those experiences and those posts that she posted. And it's a very unique story that I promise you will not want to miss. I hope you get as much from these experiences and these people's stories as I do. So talk to you later. Peace.
She came here for mental health help. Please go visit your doctor. If you're looking for some mental health tips, Dr. Daniel Amen is someone I follow. I love what he has to say and offer. I think his website is brainhealthassessment.com, and he just has some awesome checklist items that go over brain health. So like checklist items for habits that you should be doing to have better brain health. I want to say there's like 5 to 10 items. And if you have those, if you're working on those habits and trying to improve them to improve your brain health, you'll also improve your happiness level, because brain health equals mental health. So keep your brains happy and healthy, and check out Dr. Daniel Amen. This is not sponsored. I just really like what he has to say, and I think it's really beneficial. I think it can help a lot of people. It's actually very matter of fact, kind of obvious, but yet we neglect so many of these habits daily. And I do feel like, if you're feeling unhappy, that may be one of the reasons you're unhappy, because you're neglecting your brain health, which is also your mental health. And trying to improve these habits could really help. So check him out. If you have any stories from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, please get in contact with me. Let's chat. I want nothing more than to chat about the past. I want nothing more than to chat about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you have any specific questions that I'm not asking that you would like to know about these eras while interviewing these people, please let me know. I would love some advice, and I would love your input. So what would you guys like to know?